Attention Idaho and California residents. If you're shopping for a mortgage, contact PacFi, a mortgage brokerage with the top wholesale lenders in the nation. They are committed to simplifying the mortgage process, saving you time and money. Call 858-442-7048 or visit pacfi.com. NMLS number 1462943, Equal Housing Lender. Welcome to the Alcohol Tipping Point podcast. I am your host, Debbie Maisner. I'm a registered nurse. I am a mom. I am a health coach, and I'm an alcohol-free badass. And today I have Karolina from Euphoric AF. She has her own podcast. She's got her book. I'm going to let her do a bigger and better introduction of herself. But I'm super excited to have you on here, Karolina. Really like your podcast and your content. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today.
Well, yeah, go ahead. Introduce yourself, your full name. I don't want to butcher your last name. And just give us a little background of who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So I'm Karolina Rzadkowolska. It's a 12-letter last name with a lot of consonants. So it's okay to, most people have a hard time saying it, but I am an alcohol-free life coach and have been doing this for over 3 years now, and also an author of a new book that just hit bookshelves recently, earlier this year, called Euphoric Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You. It's my biggest dream to write this book, so I'm super excited to share more a little bit on the show, and also just how I kind of got here in my story, because I'm just so passionate now about helping other women not only remove alcohol, but then create this beautiful space in their life where they get to fill it with the things that give their heart the most soul and the most passion and the most purpose.
Yeah, beautiful intro, by the way. All right, well, let's start with that. Let's first start with your experience with drinking and alcohol.
Yeah, so I was a really hard partier when I was younger. I went to college and then I went to grad school, and I drank a lot. I had no boundaries around alcohol at that time. And I drank a lot, not only like when I went out and partied, but it really became a habit fast in my life. I was drinking almost every day. And then things changed as I grew up. So I stopped going to the bar on Tuesday nights, and I really kind of settled into this adulthood where I got a career, I got married, and I really started becoming this healthy, mindful person. And so what I did is I basically took my drinking and I reserved it for the weekend. And I was like, okay, everything's fine now, right? And so I started living this really Jekyll and Dr. Hyde behavior, where I would do pretty good during the week, and I would be very healthy. I would work out, I would drink my green juice, I'd do yoga, I'd meditate. And then every single weekend, alcohol came into the picture and basically felt like it bulldozed my healthy week. And I would wake up on Monday mornings just feeling so glum, so unhappy, so tired with this cycle. I was physically unwell. And then I would, slowly piece back the pieces together. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'd start to feel better. I'd start to get more energy. And then it was Friday again, and it was time to drink. And this cycle really drove me nuts. And I would look around me, though, and it was like everyone else was doing the same thing. There wasn't really something that different with my drinking compared to most people around me. And so for years, I tried to play this moderation game as well, as like trying to drink less and less and less and less. And I'd keep spreadsheets around it. And, the funny thing is that each year I actually did drink less than the year before, because I was spending so much mental energy around this. But it was also wasting so much mental energy around this. And it just made me feel like I was spending all of this like God-given talent and genius, trying to figure out how many drinks I had each week, which was really just making me feel super stuck. And finally, my big pivotal moment to make a change is I had wanted to make a change for a long time. I actually couldn't wait to take a break from alcohol. Every Monday morning, I was like, please, can I just not drink for a while? And yet it was always that social event on the calendar. It was always the dinner party. It was always the wedding. It was always the vacation. It was always something that was like, nope, you can't. You are an adult. You socialize. You have to drink. And I also felt so stuck because up until that point, when I maybe Googled a little bit about alcohol or looked at some books at the library, everything really talked about this, rock bottom story where alcohol just comes to dominate someone's life, where they're drinking, vodka at work and they have it hidden around their house and just these kind of stories. And I was like, well, it's nice to like finally relate to someone talking about alcohol in an honest way, but at the same time, this is not me, like I was very much in that gray area and very much doing what looked like everyone else was doing around me with alcohol. And so like part of me was so scared that if I even took a break or maybe did ditch alcohol, that people would assume the worst of me, that I would be called an alcoholic, and that I would have to go to AA and stuff like that because I just didn't see any other options. But finally, my worldview really changes when I first hear about dry January. And it was a few years ago. So dry January was just starting to catch on a little bit in the United States. Nowadays, it feels like everybody knows and does it.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, it was like a new thing to me. And for me, it was such a great excuse. It was like the permission I finally needed to take a break from alcohol. And I could do it without having to explain it to anyone, right? I didn't have to come up with a label or a story. I'm doing dry January. And so I did dry January that year, and I honestly, like, huge shift. There were some challenging moments, but I really did fall in love with it. I really fell in love with how much more peace and well-being I had in my life. I fell in love with the deep sleep. I fell in love with how much more energy I had. And I really fell in love with the feeling of being proud of myself every day, of really not feeling any shame or any recrimination the next day about, drinking the night before. I just love that feeling. And so February comes around, and even though I'm really happy not drinking, I don't think I can continue. I honestly believe at that point, well, normal adults drink, and if you want to be normal, Karolina, therefore you must drink. So I drank socially a few times in February, and I literally hated it. I would have even just one or two drinks in these occasions, and it completely was such a big contrast to the way I felt when I was alcohol free. So it would really ruin my mood. I would feel frustrated and pretty cranky after a drink. I got exhausted. I even started picking little fights with my husband. I wasn't really present. I remember even watching a movie and being like, this plot line, I can't even get into it. And the sleep was completely disrupted. And I would just came to this conclusion like, oh my God, drinking sucks. This is not what I thought it was. And so at that point, it took another break, which then turned into 4 years later to where I am today. And every moment, and especially that first year, every day, every month just got better and better and better and better. And I started feeling happier than I've ever felt in my entire life. And that's really where my company name and my book, Euphoric, really where it comes from is that feeling that I had. We always think that sobriety is some boring, glum, depriving kind of a feeling. And yet I had never been happier in my life than when I was taking that break from alcohol. And so I not only transformed my relationship with alcohol, but also really started to discover so much more about myself and what I really wanted in life, and almost had this new curiosity to discover what really brought me joy. Because for so long I thought it was a drink at the end of the weekend. And now it was like this beautiful questioning of like, no, Karolina, that's fake joy. What brings you real joy? And so I started kind of going on a journey to learn that about myself. And through that process and through all the confidence I gained of going alcohol free, I knew I wanted to really put a lot of these someday goals that I had on this platter, as the pipe dreams. And I really wanted to start working on them today. And so I launched my business that year. I launched a podcast. I started writing the first draft of this book. And I did so many life-changing things that today my life is a complete 180 from what it used to be.
Wow. Just so powerful. And I really like how you talk about how it was like we were already doing all these healthy things and it didn't make sense that you were drinking. And I like how you say in your book and on your show, like alcohol free is the next wellness revolution. And I just think that's so true. And you're just like a really good example of someone who, was gray area drinking, taking care of all these other areas of your life, but removing alcohol just made your life so much better.
So much better. And I'm really passionate about this because it's not like there's an us versus them out there. I don't think so at all. But I think as long as we as a society think that the only reason someone would stop drinking is because they have a massive problem, we're all going to be held back. We're all going to be held back with this idea that everybody must drink, to be considered a normal adult or to socialize or anything like that. And I really truly believe that every reason under the sun, every motivation under the sun, is valid to choose a different way to not consume this toxic beverage.
Yeah, it's a different way of thinking about it. And I think that keeps people stuck for a long time when all the movies and mainstream media and even the medical community doesn't really address drinking until it's rock bottom.
Yeah.
Um, Very cool, very cool. So, how do you help other people?
Yeah, so I am a coach and I also offer courses and programs. And so I'm passionate about not only helping people completely change their mindset around alcohol, and I have a course called Become Euphoric, which really helps people to do so, as well as my new book, Euphoric, Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You. And I really truly believe that, like, if we grow up in this society, especially a Western culture, we didn't all grow up in Saudi Arabia, most likely. We grew up glamorizing alcohol. We grew up believing certain things about alcohol. And it is, even if you don't drink yourself, it is a status symbol in our society. It is like the epitome of glamour and sophistication with your martinis and 007. And then it is the food and wine sophistication and culture of knowing all your wine regions. There's so much more symbolism that's put on a drink than just this fermented beverage. And I think growing up in this society, we've all adopted those ideas. And until you can kind of unroot those and start believing things that really empower you instead of, the alcohol industry, it will continue to have this alert in our society. So I'm super passionate about helping women not only change their mindsets around alcohol through coaching, through my course, through my book, but also what I really care about the most is when you remove that one thing that doesn't serve you, you create a space in your life and you create a space that gets filled with your deepest intuition, with your heartfelt creativity, and with an undying desire to start to find out what makes you feel passionate in your life and gives you real joy. And so what I really love the most, I literally could care less if people drink at the end of the day, right? But what I love the most is you remove this one thing and it's almost as if you have this beautiful canvas to really discover what your truest purpose is. And the journey it takes to go alcohol free, I think, is such a beautiful journey of self discovery that, my story is really not this anomaly where I removed alcohol and completely changed my life and changed my career and found a life full of passion. I mean, that sounds like your story too, right? And it sounds like so many other people's stories because it's just such a incredible transformation that happens where all of a sudden you're like, you know what, whatever I was doing before, I want to do more, or I want to make a bigger impact, or I want to go after this one dream, or I want to move and live somewhere more beautiful. And it's these things that we once told ourselves aren't possible or are just pipe dreams. We start believing that, you know what, if I could change my relationship with alcohol, maybe I could do this other hard thing too. And so that's the thing I'm really passionate about and that I love helping women with. And so I most often, when I do my personal coaching, actually work with women who are already taking a break from alcohol and are looking for that next chapter, are looking for that, like, what is going to unfold here? What is my potential? Like, what could I really do on this planet? And having someone really guide them and cheerlead them and then give them all the steps to execute what that big dream is. And I'm so proud to say that, I've written a book, obviously, and I'm talking about it today, but my clients have written books too. And my clients have launched businesses and my clients have done crazy things like move to Europe because they've always wanted to live in Europe. And I'm just so proud of that because it's like, I've never seen this kind of a change when someone just maybe removes sugar from their life. Like it starts as this health thing, but it morphs into something so much bigger.
It's such a good point. Like you don't see it when people remove sugar from their lives. Yeah, and alcohol, drinking for me, like it takes up so much bandwidth. It, when it seems harmless, especially if you are just drinking on the weekends or you're just a social drinker. But I think you don't realize that you're shutting down your thinking, not just for that moment, but for the next day. For it's just like you said, you're just creating so much more space in your life to do what you really want, or even just think about what you really want, because we've numbed it out. We've numbed out thinking. We've shut down. I would shut down 4:00, 5:00. My brain was off. So good. So good. Well, what would you say are your top tips for anyone looking to change their relationship with alcohol?
Yeah, so I think that First, recognizing what I said earlier is that we all grow up as a product of the society we live in, and we all have this worldview, mostly all of us, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
unless you grew up under a rock, right? That alcohol brings us some kind of benefit, some kind of status in our society. And I think that's like the mindset around alcohol, the mindset of why we drink today, maybe why we started drinking earlier, as younger teenagers, like those differences could be different, right? Those reasons could be different today, but really understanding like what was it then, what is it today, what are all the reasons I like to drink, and then I really think it's a mindset process, a lot more over habit change. And habit change is obviously great and wonderful. And we want to get to a point where we're taking a break from alcohol as well. But the mindset, I think, can be a lot more important to focus on, especially at first, because
Mm-hmm.
like I had wanted to change the habit for years. And I had gotten to a point where, like, yes, if you asked me to not drink for a certain amount of days, I could do it. But it wasn't fun. And it felt like I was depriving myself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a mistake I hope people don't repeat, of just removing the alcohol, but still thinking that they're missing out, or that, they're not getting to treat themselves. And it just feels like so much hard work and so much deprivation. So honestly, with the mindset piece, there's very deep work you could do. You could work with a coach, you could, enroll in a program, you could do things like that. But at the same time, if someone's like just listening to this episode, just by listening to an episode, you're starting to change your mindset. You know what I mean? Just by reading a book, you're starting to think of new ideas around alcohol that weren't really presented in society around you. So I think it can really start just by leaning into the alcohol free movement and discussions around alcohol in the space, whether that's reading a book, listening to a podcast like this. And then maybe if you want to go deeper, obviously, working with a coach, or, doing a program or something like that. And then I think that, obviously there does come a time when habit change needs to come into play. And taking a break from alcohol is to me one of those just most beautiful times to just be like, let's execute on this. Let's really discover who I am without this, substance in my life. And so once someone's ready to take a break from alcohol, and I think, 30 days is amazing. 100 days, you're going to have a huge life change. But even 7 days, 3 days, like you got to start where you are sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And even that can kind of, while you probably won't get a lot of benefits over 3 days, like you won't experience all of them in 3 days, you're kind of building your muscle, your sober muscle, where you're learning how to not always go to alcohol, at the end of a day, or whatever it looks like. And so once someone's in a break from alcohol, I would highly recommend, really leaning into the literature and guidance out there, so that it doesn't feel like you're just willpowering your way through it, but you really are truly getting to know yourself better, getting to know what emotions are coming up for you, getting to know what those emotions are trying to tell you at the end of the day. Like I personally believe that while stress is a normal part of life, and we all have stress to a certain extent, you're not supposed to feel like 1,000% stressed out every single day of your life, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that if you are, maybe there's some signals there. Maybe there's some shifts that need to be made. Maybe there's some conversations that need to be had, or a reevaluation of what you're doing, or how you could ask for more help, or whatever it is. And so sometimes our emotions that used to be numbed by alcohol, the ones that come up, even the uncomfortable ones, are these beautiful messages to our soul about how to design a life that really serves you and is aligned to you. And so this is definitely a process, but it's really so much about, if you thought about it as self-discovery, I think we'd all be a little bit more willing to see what we're going to learn about ourselves and what we're going to figure out. And another really cool thing to figure out is, what is really fun for me. For so long, alcohol has tricked my brain with its dopamine spike to think that it's fun, right? I remember for years, if you would have told me, let's go to a winery versus let's go stargazing, which one would I have picked? Brewery tasting versus museum, I would have always picked the alcohol ones. And yet that was just like a trick on my brain. It wasn't real fun. It wasn't real joy. I kind of think it's similar to, like, let's just put rats in an experiment and put these little brain nodes on their brains and then trigger their pleasure center. Of course, it's going to feel good to the rats, but they're not actually experiencing joy, right? It's just this chemical reaction. And so when you remove that, you almost have this beautiful experiment to discover what really brings me joy in my life. What hobbies would I really love to start doing again, or rediscover, or try something new? What people do I want to meet? What interests me? What social causes pull at my heart? What am I passionate about? And in my book, I actually have a process, and in my program as well, to really go out in the world and explore new things, try different stuff. I've had clients go to pottery classes and do photography, and boxing and aerial yoga and cycling and learning a new language. Like, it's crazy all the different things that they've tried. And in a way of learning more about themselves and just really what delights them. And I think from that point of view, you then learn so much about yourself that you have such a deeper understanding of what you want in life. And that's the thing about alcohol, is that even though most of us aren't fond of our drinking days, like they come with a little bit more pain or more, shame or whatever than pleasure, I think alcohol teaches us something really important, because it teaches us what we don't want. And when we
Mm.
learn what we don't want in our life, we can then be better attuned to figure out what we do want. And I know that sounds really simplistic and common sense, but think about it. Like, how many people on this planet actually really know what they want out of their life? It's not a common thing. And so I think in so many ways, alcohol can teach us this experience of what we don't want in our life, so that when we remove it, we are like on hyperspeed to go after that thing that we do want.
Yeah. I mean, so deep, so much. I almost feel overwhelmed. And so to someone else listening, like, just start, because I mean, I'm on the other side, you're on the other side, so it's, we can look back on that. But if you were just starting out, if you're just like, oh, I think I need to cut back, like, if you're just in that very tiny start, what would you say to someone?
Honestly, read a book. I think that's like, there's no pressure there
Mm-hmm.
to make these declarations of, I'm quitting or I'm never going to touch alcohol again. But I think just, again, really surrounding yourself with different information can be enough to start changing the way you look at alcohol. Slowly but surely, it's not going to happen overnight. But I think really just reading a book is a huge first start. I'm not sure if that helped you, Deb, but when I first started, I read books like This Naked Mind and
Mm-hmm.
The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, and those books helped me see it differently, and I think that's a huge catalyst, and that's why I'm just so proud and honored to be able to add a book to the literature myself.
Yeah, and I think that's, like, doable. Like, okay, I'm gonna read a book. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna take a weekend break. I'm taking this weekend off. I'm gonna take 7 days off. Now I'm gonna do 30, or just, keep practicing. What would you say a common thing that I hear a lot from people especially people starting out, is struggling with cravings and urges. What kind of advice do you have for that?
Absolutely. So I think there's a lot of beautiful modalities out there. And it really is a game of experimentation, because what works for someone might be totally different from what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I personally believe that with our modern lives, and especially as women, we are just go, 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 go all day. We carry the world in our hands, right? We are carrying a zillion spinning plates all the time. And I think that most of us just live these overly productive days, which leads to a lot of adrenal overload in our system. So it's like then alcohol comes in the evening, and it's the one thing you can finally do to relax, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, obviously, as you know, and as our listeners are learning, alcohol doesn't actually relax the body physically. Alcohol releases more stress hormones in the body, and anyone who wakes up the next day didn't really get rid of any of their stress, and now their stress is compounded, right? Because now not only do they still have whatever was stressing them out from the day before, but they might now have a headache on top of that and just no stamina to really face it. And so, knowing that we really live these go, 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 go days, the first thing that I'll do with a client is really look at their daily structure. One of the best ways, I just really fundamentally believe that you can bring a little bit more balance into your day, feel a lot more on top of it, and feel a lot more centered and just grounded, is to have a morning routine. So, once
Mm.
someone's ready to incorporate a morning routine, it's just this private time that you have to yourself. You could do things like journaling, you could work out, you could state some affirmations, you could meditate. It's up to you really what you do. It could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour, right? So you can play with whatever you have. But it's just this time where you are not reacting to the world. You are not getting bombarded by emails. You are not having your kids screaming in your face. You are just by yourself, centering yourself and really reflecting and really just honoring and being grateful for the day in front of you. And that can often really lead to a shift in the rest of your day. And then we'll also look at how the rest of the day plays out. So, for example, does someone even like step away from their computer in a day? do they have an ability to take a lunch break and actually put down work that at that moment if they are working, and maybe take a walk somewhere outside in nature, or read a book. Reading has actually been proven to relax the human brain faster than almost anything. So maybe even just taking a 20-minute reading break during your lunch. And then also, just getting up in the day, like every hour after work, getting up. So these tools, honestly, what they help you with is so that it doesn't become this huge crescendo at the end of the day that you need to, like, a crest and then you have to relax from. You're trying to incorporate that permission to relax a little bit more throughout the day. But then the evening comes around, you still had a stressful day. There's a lot going on. We all live these busy lives. And so there's all these different things, I think, to try when it comes to alleviate cravings. And really what you're looking for, I think, for the most part, especially when you're not drinking socially, when you are at home, is really you want to relax. It's really what you're looking for. And since alcohol actually scientifically doesn't do that for your body, let's figure out what will. So there's all these different modalities out there, but one of them is called breath work. And breath work is basically a kind of a form of meditation, but you're practicing doing some breathing exercises. There's this one breath that is called the child's breath, where you breathe in very deeply twice through your nose, like like that. And you could only do that for 30 seconds. And it's crazy how it will change the state of your brain so fast, because you are getting so much more oxygen than you've ever been used to. And that can often be like really soothing and really, really feel good. I know it sounds so common sense, like, okay, I'm just supposed to breathe, right? But it really does change the state of your brain. And so that's just one example. Another example could be, like, some of my clients love water therapy. What do I mean by that? Just hopping into a bath or a shower. So in one way, most of us probably aren't drinking in the shower. So one, it kind of removes you from the environment from where you would drink. You really, really want to drink. So you get in the shower and you're not really thinking about a drink in the shower as much because you're probably not used to drinking there. And also, like, the water itself and the, like, cocoon of warmth that you're creating is so soothing for the body. So that's a really, really good one I found when people are experiencing cravings. Another one is like taking a walk outside. Personally, there's nothing that soothes me more than watching the sunset. It's just like, no matter what was troubling me that day, no matter what little thing was just driving me nuts, I'm like reminded when I watch the sun set, like, oh my gosh, I live in this beautiful planet. This is a miracle. I'm just enthralled by wonder at that moment. Other people love to do something that's called like yin yoga, where you actually do a form of stretching at the end of the day and really release a lot of tension that way and really soothe yourself in that. Some people like to work out. And then lastly, I always like to remind people, you can pour a drink. You can literally pour any drink you want. Just pick one that doesn't have alcohol in it, ethanol, right? There's so many drinks out there on the market these days, whether they're alcohol-free beverages like non-alcoholic beer or wine or spirits, or just like your health food store drinks, like a really nice tea or a reishi drink or a matcha latte. Find a drink you love. And that way, when you have a craving, you can still go through the ritual of decompressing and pouring yourself a drink. You just change the drink. And the crazy thing is that the placebo effect works really well in that circumstance. And it often can really meet that craving and that anticipation you felt to treat yourself with a drink without having the negative side effect of all that ethanol and the toxicity of alcohol in it. So those are some ideas. And again, I think everyone's so personal that they're going to have to kind of play around with it and see what works for them. And some days you're going to want to do the run, and other days you're going to just want to plop on the couch, and that's okay too. Sometimes it's like when we want to change alcohol in our lives, the behavior, we also want to change everything else. So our eating habits is on the table and our exercise. And I always caution my clients, like, don't try to change everything at once.
Mm-hmm.
Just focus on not drinking if that's what your plan is right now. You don't also have to pick up veganism and run 4 miles tomorrow. So it's okay. Like, if you're not healthy in some other ways at first, that's okay as well too. Like, it will balance out and it will change at first.
Gosh, those are such good tips. I want to go back to two things. One was, tell me about the child breathing again. I got to hear more about this.
Yeah, so we are really notoriously shallow breathers, and most of us
Yeah.
breathe through our chest, not our diaphragm. And our diaphragm is like where we would breathe through our tummy. And so we are really depleted of oxygen, the number one nutrient that we need really to live on this planet. And so the child's breath, it's 2 deep breaths in through the nose and then release through the mouth. And
Okay.
it's called a child's breath for a reason, because if you've ever heard a child crying, or maybe you remember, sometimes they mimic this breath where a child could go,
Yeah. Yeah.
and animals actually do it too. And it's actually a really, primal way to soothe yourself really quickly. And sometimes I will be teaching like a group coaching class or even just be on a live video, and I'll be walking the participants through this breath, and we'll do it literally for just a minute. And after a minute, like my brain feels so differently than before. Like I am flooded with that oxygen. I feel even a little lightheaded. I feel a lot clearer. I feel a lot more soothed. It's crazy how breathwork can work. And, you could always get an app, or you could Google even a breathwork class on a YouTube video. You could do it for a minute. You could do it for an hour, So there's so much just to play with and trying new things that might really help soothe your emotions. And a lot of these things sound like common sense, so much to the point that they won't work, but they're common sense for a reason, and it's just like, sometimes it's the last thing we want to do in the moment, but it's always worth trying, I think, new things in that moment when you feel a craving, and what you're really looking for is something to soothe you, I think, in that moment. And a drink doesn't have that long-term effect, but maybe these new healthier modalities will.
Yeah, you're really building up your sober toolkit.
Exactly.
And I love breath work, and I talk about box breathing a lot, which is the inhale for 4, hold for 4, release for 4. But the child one I hadn't heard of, but it is. I'm just always like, you guys, this is free. Like your breath, like this is something accessible to you always. It's free. So that's a great one. The other thing you had said that I have been trying to get this answer. So you said reading relaxes your brain. Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, so I think it was a study that came out from Canada. I'm not sure now, but they just proved that they had contestants meditate. They had people, I think, take a bath or something, just a few things that we would think are relaxing in our society. And as they studied the brain waves, it was reading that actually relaxed people the most. And I'm a huge reader. I read around 60 to 90 books a year. And the one thing I really hated about my relationship with alcohol is any night I drank, there was no reading happening. Like I couldn't read at all. I just wasn't interested, or I would be too busy to even care.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Or you would forget what you read.
Right. Yeah. So like really getting back into reading was so, so beautiful, and something I can do now every single night, whatever night I want to read. But I think because like your mind gets so enthralled into maybe the story you're reading or whatever you're learning when you're reading, it's hard to also think about all your worries at the same time. Like you're usually not having those competing thoughts as much when you're reading. You're just focusing on the material. You're not maybe also thinking about the cupcakes you have to bake tomorrow and all this stuff. So it's almost as if it like replaces the brain ability to think about other things, I think. And that's, I think, why reading can be really soothing and relaxing. And especially like, when people have trouble sleeping, it can be really typical when you first take a break from alcohol to have just a little bit of disrupted sleep. I mean, the last thing you want to do is be watching the TV or on the phone before bed, but reading, I always will tell someone, challenge yourself to read 100 pages, if you can't sleep. And I bet you there's no way you're going to get through those 100 pages. You'll fall asleep after like 10.
Oh, I love that. I'm a huge reader too. And I've been like trying to look up like, is reading a form of mindfulness? And then to hear about this study, I'm like, okay, yeah. Fantastic. Well, let's talk more about your book. And congratulations on writing a book. And it sounds like it's been a dream for you. What is your book like? Like, what is in it? How is it helpful?
Yeah, so Euphoric is all about how incredible life is without alcohol. And the way I structured it was that the first 2 parts really go over all the life-changing benefits of taking a break from alcohol. And I divide it into the body, the mind, and the soul. So the body will go over a lot of the physical benefits, and it's, compiled by a lot of studies that have come out about, just what happens to the body when you take a break from alcohol, and a lot of my personal and clients' anecdotes of just having so much more energy and a sense of well-being and, saving money and looking younger, all those beautiful things. And then the mind goes deeper into like really regaining the sense of self-love for yourself, self-esteem, self-trust. and really kind of forming a stronger relationship with yourself that's formed on positive beliefs about yourself, not all these negative ones based on shame, and really healing that shame as well. And then the soul is about all these kind of more beautiful benefits that you would never think have anything to do with removing alcohol from your life. But, your state of gratitude increases dramatically, and your presence with your loved ones, and even your spirituality might be deepened. And maybe your bigger goals and dreams that you had long ago shelved, or, don't even like to consider or never believed were possible, you start kind of nudging you a little bit more, right? They start coming out. Your intuition is giving you these little signs. So the first two parts of the book just really show a reader like what's possible when you take a break from alcohol. And my hope is that this life sounds so good, so exciting, that the reader can't wait to take a break themselves. And then the last part of the book, part 3, is actually giving them the guidance to do so. So it's an 8-week plan modeled after my most successful course that hundreds of women have taken. We're in an 8-week plan of taking a break from alcohol and really diving deep into their own self-discovery, removing all these beliefs around alcohol that don't serve them, really making sense of the role of alcohol in their lives, learning to manage these new situations like socializing or what to do with yourself after 5 p.m. But also then towards the end of the 8-week plan, really kind of discovering what brings you a sense of fun. And if you, were to start a new chapter in your life to basically replace alcohol, one that wasn't based on immediate gratification, but really a deeper sense of meaning and fulfillment, kind of nudging them with some questions and some guidance of what that would be. So that's the book in a nutshell. And I really wrote this book, honestly, too, to not just talk to someone who really, really relates to alcohol being a huge problem in their life. Because I think what happens is that there's such an us versus them mentality out there, right? There's a normal drinker versus the problem drinker. And the thing is, like, I've talked to so many professionals now. I've talked to so many people in interviews, and just a lot of people have opened up to me. I don't see there being a line there. I really don't. I really see anyone who has a regular relationship with alcohol experiences regular negative side effects. Like, because that's just, alcohol affects us all the same. And I think if we were all more honest about that, which I think is really changing now, we would see that, even people who I've worked with people who only drink one drink at a time, and they're still locked into this habit. You know what I mean? So I really don't believe it has anything to do with the quantity of alcohol that's being drunk. Anyone can come to recognize that, you know what, this isn't really serving me anymore. Maybe it was one thing when I was younger, but it's just not really helping me become the woman I want to become. Or maybe it's not aligned to my values. Or maybe I'm not feeling comfortable about drinking in front of my children. Maybe it's not really a big thing, like it's not a lot, but it's just still not the kind of role modeling I want to do. Or maybe it's not really aligned to my bigger dreams. Like, I don't feel the best when I wake up after drinking. Obviously, nobody does, right? And I really need to feel my best every day if I want to accomplish my goal of writing a book or something. So it really has just so much openness to, like, whatever person's motivation are to be here. Like, you're welcome, like whether you're a casual drinker, a social drinker, or you have a complicated relationship with alcohol, you're welcome here to read this book and really make sense of the role alcohol plays in your life, and really give yourself an empowering position to see who you are without it.
Yeah, I think you do just a brilliant job of painting that alcohol-free picture. Your euphoria.
Thank you.
Well, what are your plans for the future?
Yeah, so I mean, writing this book, I have to just share this real quick, is been the biggest dream of my whole life. Like, I was 6 years old when I recognized that I wanted to be an author and a writer, and I would write a lot as a child. So I would write poems, I would journal, I write short stories. And then the most funny thing happened when alcohol came around the scene is I stopped writing completely. It was around college that I completely stopped writing. I didn't even journal anymore. And I was just so saddened by that, because the dream to write a book never left me. And so what ended up happening was that in my later 20s, I would make New Year's resolutions around this. I would say, all right, this is the year I write a book. My New Year's resolution is to just write 30 minutes a week. And the first week of January would come by and I'd write those 30 minutes. And then that was it for the whole year. And every year I'd have nothing more than a paragraph ever written. And it really depressed me, and it really made me feel like, you know what, that dream that you had since you were a little girl, it's not going to happen for you. It's just not going to happen. Because honestly, and this is only, I can say this with hindsight, but it was so much easier to open up a bottle of wine than write the next great American novel. You know what I mean? And I lacked the discipline, I lacked the creativity, and I also lacked the vulnerability. here I was, someone who wanted to write, a book about other people or character development, sharing emotions. So much goes into a book. And I wasn't even willing to look into my emotions. It was just like hard stop. Nope, we numb those. How could I possibly write anything about anyone, if I wasn't able to be really vulnerable and accept myself as well? But something miraculously changed when I took my break from alcohol is I started journaling a lot. And I started trying to make sense of my relationship with it, the role of alcohol in our society. But I was journaling again voraciously that year. And when I started journaling, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, my writing's back. And I really then believed that I can write a book about this. And I remember I was around 2 months alcohol free and I was in Hawaii and I watched the sunset. And all of a sudden, I just heard the word euphoric. It was like euphoric. You're meant to write this book, euphoric. And, a month after that, I like literally got all the chapters that just came to me. And I honestly believe that this wasn't my idea. I got it from something else. Something else gave me this, this download, this divine kind of intervention. And I took really just every single baby step that was necessary to get this book out into the world. And it was a lot of hard work, but it was literally changing my relationship with alcohol that made me believe I meant to do this. This is my destiny. And so now that the book is out, I couldn't be like more proud of myself today because I honored that little girl's dreams. And that is really what brings me so much joy in my heart. But those little girl's dreams was to be an author and to write multiple books. So I have more dreams to write other books. I'm really interested in growing my company and this movement and really serving women at the best level of my ability to have just beautiful experiences and really become ridiculously confident and empowered in an alcohol-free lifestyle and believing that it is that one thing that sets them apart to do anything that they want. Because then you won't ever feel like the one who's missing out or feel like this is some kind of weakness you have. You will always look at it as like, this is what sets me apart to be able to go after anything I want on this planet. And so that's kind of my vision for my company and the programs that we're going to be offering in the future. I'm hoping to do some masterminds and some retreats. But yeah, I definitely want to write more books as well. But for now, I will be promoting this one. I've been on TV a few times with this book and just really having an incredible launch and just so grateful for all the support and, people like you to be on your show. It just means so much to me.
Well, congratulations. Yeah, I hope, it sounds like you're just enjoying this life you have created for yourself. And wow, that little girl and your dreams. And it's so interesting too, like you had to go through what you did to get to where you are now. And it's like all meant to be in a way.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, how can someone find you?
Yeah. So the book is available on Amazon and anywhere in bookstores, most likely, but you could easily find it at www.euphoricbook.com. And when you order the book from there, you'll also get some freebies that I've got, like my mocktail recipe ebook and a checklist on 50 things to do instead of drinking, as well as a guide on how to socialize without alcohol. So you can get all of those goodies at www.euphoricbook.com. And then if anyone's interested in working with me as your coach or in a program of mine, or to check out my podcast or any other things I offer, you can find me at euphoricaf.com.
Oh, perfect. And I'll put those in the show notes so everyone can have them.
Great.
Well, thank you again for being on the show. It was just so great to talk to you. You've motivated me. And I just really appreciate you taking the time and being an inspiration and helping others. And I look forward to reading more of your books. So thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. Honestly, everything that you do and the content you provide from your audience. And it's just amazing. I'm so blessed and lucky to have a network of women like you in my world as well.
Yeah, we're changing the conversation. All right. Well, take care.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Alcohol Tipping Point. I'm always here for you guys, so please feel free to reach out and talk to me on Instagram at Alcohol Tipping Point and check out my website, alcoholtippingpoint.com. Again, I hope you can use these tips we talked about for the rest of your week. And until then, see you next time.